What can everybody do if sued by debt collectors? Brought to you by YourLegalLeg.com, your advantage if you're being sued by debt collectors. Hi, this is one of a series of short videos meant to answer frequently asked questions on my site. You'll find the link to more FAQs below in the About This Video section. The question here is, what can everybody do about debt cases? What would happen if everybody defended against debt lawsuits? To answer this question, consider the scale of the issues. First, we'll talk about the national scale, and then we'll bring it down to one member's recent experience, an experience I had many times while I was representing people in this types of case. On the national scale, it isn't clear exactly how many of these suits are being brought. I don't think anybody knows, but there is over $1 trillion of consumer debt out there, and a lot of it is troubled. And that doesn't even count duplicates or old debt, car debt, installment payment debt, house debt, business debts, student loan debts, which themselves are over $1 trillion, or utility bills. In other words, there's a lot of debt. We're talking about a truly gigantic business here, trillions of dollars. And how does it actually work? You know that big debt collectors get huge amounts of debt at a time for small amounts of money. They ship them out for collection all over the country. The collectors either bug you for the money or just bring suit. They can do either one, and they file, I'm guessing here, over 1 million suits per year, maybe many millions. They file them in every magistrate court, small claims court, district court, all over the country, every day of the year, every weekday of the year. I'm not really talking about federal courts, however. They don't usually file them there. They do sometimes, but mostly we're talking state courts and city courts. In St. Louis County, which doesn't include the city, there are 10 courts that receive the bulk of these cases, and it's not unusual to see 400 cases set for 1 hour of one day in one court. I've been there on days when there were 800 cases set for hearing for an hour. Now to discuss a member's recent experience. He said that there were over 400 cases in the court that his case was set in. He sat there for an hour while all of them went away in 1 hour. In other words, the people being sued all either gave up to the lawyer out in the hall so that the plaintiff related the case had been settled, or to the judge, or by default. They didn't come at all. Of the 400 cases set that day, only one person chose to defend, and that was our member, of course. Now consider that court again. It handled almost 400 cases in a little over an hour, and then it went on to other business. That's all in a day's work, right? What if all 400 people had said no and insisted on their right to trial? That would mean that the court would have to set 400 hearings and listen to the arguments one at a time. If they went to trial, they would have to set 400 cases and spend at a minimum 2 hours on each one, 100 long days. In 1 hour, the court would find itself half a year behind schedule at a minimum. Now I ask you, do you think they'd keep doing it that way if people would defend themselves? Or consider the 10 lawyers thereabouts who handled those cases, those 400 cases. Suppose that instead of giving up, everybody engaged in debt defense. They asked for discovery, haggled over objections, demanded real proof of their supposed debts. It would take hours, of course, of time for the lawyers, and it would stretch it out over months and months, years sometimes. In 1 hour, those 10 lawyers would be 2 years behind schedule. Instead of collecting $500,000 in judgment in an hour and shuffling those off to the machine to collect, they'd have to work 2 years for whatever judgments they would get, eventually, and they wouldn't get nearly as many of them either. Do you think they could keep doing all that if people would defend themselves? All over the country, the debt collection business would bog down and come to a screeching halt. I don't think anybody knows what would happen after that. There's an old saying that if you owe the bank $1,000, they own you, but if you owe them $1 million, you own them. Of course, that's an old saying, right? So we could be talking about bigger money now. If people being sued by debt collectors could just realize it, though, they would see that they own the system. There's so much debt out there that the system won't work if people defend themselves. It all depends on people giving up. Stop giving up, and the debt collection business collapses. Helping people protect their rights is what we do. Protect what's yours and don't let the debt collectors rip you off. YourLegalLegUp.com